Happy, beautiful day. It's Pete Cohen here, and welcome to the Pete Cohen podcast. We are well and truly into this series about geniuses and waking up the genius within you. Yes, there is a genius inside you, and today we're going to be looking at Mahatma Gandhi, how to be like Gandhi. Now, if you don't know who Gandhi is, you're probably lying, because you've probably at least heard of his name, because his impact is so far-reaching. Even though he died in 1948, his legend lives on. I'm excited to share with you some of the greatness of this man and how you can take some of what he did and apply it to your life today. Get ready for another game-changing podcast. I see you after the theme tune. The big question is, how are some people in the world today creating the results they want with their health, wealth, and happiness? What exactly are these people doing? This podcast will give you the answers and inspire you to live the life that you want today. Hey everyone, it's Pete Cohen here. Today's podcast, how to be like Mahatma Gandhi. So who was Gandhi? Well, Gandhi was an incredible human being that really did something which, if you were going to put odds go into a betting office and say, hey, I'd like to put a bet on an end to violence in India, an end of the British Empire rule, and I'm going to put a bet on this guy, this small little guy who was born in India, who's a failed lawyer, really not much to him at all. Can you put odds on that, please? Well, of course, there would be no odds, because the odds would have been stacked against him in terms of what he did. And I want to share some of that with you today, because part of this whole series of podcasts around this subject of a genius is to make you realize there is a genius inside every single one of us. The Romans called it a genius, and I think it's one of the most important stories that everyone really needs to know. Go and Google that word. Go and Google the word genius, because if you go and Google it, it will probably tell you what you thought, which is a genius is someone who's very intelligent, someone who's very extremely gifted, someone who's probably born with that talent, but that's not the origin of the word. The origin of the word is something completely different. The origin came from the Roman times, and the Romans believed that every single person was born with the genius inside them, a guiding voice, a guiding spirit that would move them in the right direction, that would guide them towards their higher purpose, that would guide them towards contributing, would guide them towards bringing their unique gift into the world. I personally believe that everyone has got unique talents. Everyone has got certain things that they can do, and that only they can do it. And think about it for a moment. This is so true, right? Because only you can be the mother or the father or the daughter or the friend to the people around you. Only you can do that, because you're the only you that there is. So there are just certain things in life that only you can do, and you could do those things better, couldn't you? There's no question about it. You could do those things better if you really wanted to. But what else could you do in this world if you really wanted to? One of the things that we've been talking about is legacy. Most of us want to leave a legacy. Most of us want to leave an imprint. Most of us want to be remembered. And I think that for as long as you're remembered, you are alive. And that's why with some of the geniuses that we've done podcasts on, from like I'm just about to do Mahatma Gandhi, he died in 1948, but his legend lives on. Or Leonardo da Vinci, who died 500 years ago. Or Shakespeare, that died 400 years ago. Elizabeth I, who also died, I think, maybe 400 years ago. Their legends still live on, because they had something that they wanted to do. And I believe we've all got something that we want to do. It doesn't have to be grandiose like some of these people, but there is something inside all of us, and my goal in life is to inspire people, to wake them up so that they realize that they can be more. They don't have to settle for their frustrations, their anxieties, their depressions, their sadness for a life of mediocrity. And by the way, the word mediocrity comes from the Roman word, which means middle, and ocrity, rugged mountain, being caught in the middle of a rugged mountain. And I think that's where so many of us are. We're just caught. We're fed up. We're not striving for anything. We're just settling for a life of mediocrity. And if that's what you want to do, that's entirely up to you. I'd say just enjoy your life. But I believe that most of the suffering that is happening in the world today is because people are not striving for anything. We're living in a world right now where people are just sitting there and just thinking to themselves, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like getting up early. I don't feel like running that extra mile. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it, because we've created a world where we don't have to feel like doing anything because everything can be brought to you. The only thing most of us feel like is just a little bit of instantaneous gratification that we get from just doing things that we know really don't serve us long term. I believe there's greatness in you, and that's my goal in this life. That's what I learned from listening to people like Gandhi, or just learning about them. What did they do, and what could you do? By the way, this podcast is brought to you by Pete Cohen Coaching. And if you want to find out what coaching can do for you, because all of these people that I've been featuring on this podcast, they all had coaches. They all had mentors. I did. I had a coach for 16 years of my life. I traveled the world with him. He not only helped me make millions in a few business decisions many years ago, that if I hadn't have had his help, I would have totally made some terrible decisions. He saved my wife's life with the advice that he gave me. We all need help. And if you want to try and get from where you are to where you want to be on your own, good luck. Because the only reason that human beings are alive today is because someone helped someone else. There's no question about that. And if you want to see what coaching can do for you, go to petecohen.com/coaching. That's petecohen.com/coaching. There's a free video on there. It's about 30 minutes long, where I explain to you my coaching philosophy. I also give you some practical things that you could start doing right away. And then you have the opportunity to get on a call. You have the opportunity to get on a call with me, and we can talk about where you are and where you want to go. And we can see how coaching could help you. I'm going to take my top off because I can feel the heat in this room. I'm actually wearing, not that you can see, you guys, because I'm recording a little bit of this on Instagram, but you guys who are listening to this can't see I'm wearing a West Ham United ladies football team shirt. And West Ham won yesterday. They beat Birmingham 1-0, mate. It was great. That's how they talk in Birmingham. And it's amazing to watch women's football. And it's unfair, right? It's really unfair the way that the men get paid and the way that the women get paid. But what can we do about that? Well, all we can do is get on and get better. And this is one of the things I really want to explore with all of you. There's a lot of issues in the world. There's a lot of things in the world that aren't right. And we need people to stand up for what is right. And that was one of the things that Gandhi actually did. He stood up for what he believed. He believed that violence is not a way of bringing an end to violence. And for those of you that don't know about Gandhi, Gandhi was born in 1869 and was assassinated in 1948. And what he stood for was so much. He stood for humanity. He stood for non-violence. And I believe personally that that's something we should all be looking to do, non-violence. Now, what does that mean? I believe there's violence going on inside every human being. Now, what do I mean? We are violating ourselves. When we don't have ideals, when we don't have a vision of something that we're working towards, there is a war that is going on. There's a war going on in you. There's a war going on in me. The war started this morning when I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. The war started. It was like, oh, is it really time to get up? Oh, no. Let's just stay. Where am I? I actually didn't know where I was this morning because I've just come back from Boston, being a part of this incredible project that we'll be sharing with the world, Everyday Spartans. I woke up, I didn't actually know where I was. When I realized when I was, the war started. Like, stay where you are. Stay where you are, hands up, freeze. And then another voice in my head said, no, come on, let's get up. Let's go and record this podcast. Let's go downstairs. Let's go in and do what we need to do. And that war started. And it took a few minutes for the genius in me to go, let's go. Let's get up. Let's go. Let's do this. Most of us, all of us, have that battle going on. And my goal in inspiring people is to help people get in contact with their genius and let the genius within them win. There is a war going on inside every human being. And you can ignore this message and go, no, there isn't. And as soon as you say to yourself, no, there isn't, you realize that you're resisting what is true. And this is one of the things that Gandhi said. It's one of the things I wrote down. It's something called Saghatra, holding on to the truth. It's an ancient Indian Sanskrit word, Saghatra, which means holding on to the truth. What is the truth? Is the truth not that you are at war with yourself? Is the truth not right now all over the world people are at war with themselves, creating dis-ease? When we're not at ease with ourselves, where we're fighting against ourselves. We don't have to do that. And for me, that's one of the greatest things that Gandhi stood for. He represents really what is so possible. He was a timid, shy person. He got married when he was 13 years old. He had his first child when he was 18. He went from London. He studied law. He was terrible at law. At one of his first cases, he was so nervous that he couldn't speak. And he was actually taken off the case and someone else was given the case. He was laughed at by his peers. And then he went to South Africa, and he had a massive pivotal point in his life where he had an awakening. In South Africa, he was on the train. He was in the first class carriage, and he was told to get up and go into the third class, which is where the Indians were given the place to sit. And he said no, but he had to. And there was a massive pivotal point in his life where he realized, you know what? I'm not accepting this. I'm not accepting this. And just imagine that. I mean, it's something that most of us have never experienced. And if you have experienced that type of racism, that type of inhumanity, is that a word? That's where he started to wake up to the truth of this should not be allowed. And this is what I'm asking everyone to do, is to wake up and ask themselves a few really important questions. How did an ordinary person, a failed lawyer, manage to transform himself and stand up against the greatest empire without firing a shot? Now, the British Empire, as many people know, was founded on a lot of violence, a lot of this is what we're doing, and this is the empire, and this is how we're going to do things. How can a small little man with a massive heart stop the British Empire through non-violence? How can one man change the world? Well, how did he do it? He changed himself. He changed himself. He became much more than that shy person who was kicked out of the carriage that he was in. He rattled the world. And one of the things he's really famous for saying is that we must become the change that we want to see. We must become the change that we want to see. And what I've observed, and I've seen this in myself, is I've wanted things to change. I wanted other people to change rather than looking to change myself. And what does that really mean? What does that really mean to change ourselves? I think it really, for me, it's about becoming the person that you're truly capable of becoming and deciding to stand up for something. So Gandhi was an instrument of peace. He found the power within himself to rise up. In fact, one of his friends, who was a historian, said to him, Gandhi, you don't know history, because Gandhi started saying, this is what we're going to do. When he left South Africa and came back to India, he'd been practicing. He wasn't just a theorist. He'd been practicing non-violence and getting people to stand up, getting people to strive for something, even though the odds were massively stacked against them. Can you imagine if you were in South Africa and you were of a different color, you weren't white, and you decided to say, no, I'm going in there, I'm going to do this, I'm going to say this. Can you imagine the resistance against that from the outside world, the violence that you might experience? But he experienced a lot, and he must have seen so much death. He must have seen, he went in and out of prison many times for standing up for what he believed in. And when he went back to India, he had decided, no, this is what we are going to do. We are going to practice non-violence. We are going to free India from the political situation, the dominance of power. We're going to make India an independent state. And he had to get people behind him. He had to get people to believe in him. And am I trying to get you to believe in me? Maybe, but more importantly, I'm trying to get you to believe in yourself. And his friend, who'd heard Gandhi talking about this, who was a historian, said, Gandhi, what are you doing? Never had as a nation been free without violence like this. It's impossible. And Gandhi apparently said something to him, well, you don't know history, because history is full of people who have done incredible things. So the odds were against, if we're looking at you in your life, because we know the goal of these podcasts is for you to listen and go, hey, well, if he can do that, I can do that. Well, maybe not bring an end to violence around the world, but maybe that is something that you want to do. But believing something and striving for something is where people really start to see what they're capable of. And what could you strive for? Could you strive for better health? Do you want better health? If I could wave a magic wand so you could have better health, would you say, just wave it, please, Pete? No aches and pains, just slim, fit, and healthy. Yeah, please. What about with your relationships? Would you like to have better relationships with your friends, your family, more loving, more intimate relationships? If I could wave the wand and say, Pete, yeah, give that to me. And what about work and wealth? Again, is that something that you want? Most people want it, but you know what? They don't feel like doing it. And that's why they don't do anything, because they think it's going to be hard work, and they'd rather just sit back, sit on their couch, watch the television, eat food which really isn't the best food for them to eat, and just go from day to day, never really getting anywhere near what they're capable of. What do you think? Human beings are at their most fulfilled when they are becoming something more than they are today. They're working towards something. And that's what Gandhi stood for. Many things that he said that I love. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. I love that. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Can you imagine that if you're going to bring an end to violence in a country that has just had so much of it in the past, where people have been beaten down by it, that they just stop and submit to it? That people could still find it in their heart. We must forgive. To be strong, we must move forwards. We must strive for something more. Truly powerful. I believe the greatest forgiveness is the forgiveness that we need to forgive ourselves for what we've been doing to ourselves, the violence inside ourselves. And as I've said, that to me is the greatest thing that Gandhi stood for, the violence that goes on inside us, the violation of who we are truly capable of being. He also said, where there is love, there is life. In a gentle way, you can shake the world. These are things that he said. One of my favorite quotes from Gandhi is, let me just read it to you. I've got it written down here. I have not the shadow of doubt that any man or woman can achieve what he did with the same effort, but they must cultivate hope and faith. Truly incredible, right? What do you want to be an instrument of? What type of revolution do you want to create? What do you want your legacy of your life to be? You know this is true, right? So what did Gandhi do? Well, he had a vision. He decided to go after something, and it wasn't easy. Can you imagine practicing non-violence, how much violence you had to experience? Can you imagine how many times he was attacked, and people around him who believed him who were also attacked, the people that died, but yet still practicing. That's one of the greatest things that Gandhi to me represents. Practicing. Every single day we have to practice. Because if we don't practice, what tends to happen is we become subject to our past. And mastery is a form of practice. When you're mastering something, it's because you're practicing something. And it's so easy to give up on a practice, isn't it? How many times have you done something for a bit, you knew it was a good thing to do, but you stopped practicing it. And then when you stop practicing it, you failed to get the result that you wanted. There's this story that I've heard many times of, imagine going to the doctor and you say, "Doctor, I've got this problem. I've just got this issue right now." And the doctor says, "Yeah, I hear you." And he prescribes medicine for your neighbor. Now, what I mean by that is the solution to the issues that you have isn't someone else changing. It's you to become the change. And what Gandhi totally embodies is what transformation is all about in terms of having an ideal, having your own vision of who you must become, the person that you must practice being every single day and doing your best to be that person. There's another story of Gandhi where a mother brought her son, and the mother said to Gandhi, "Can you please help my son? He won't stop eating sugar." And Gandhi said, "Bring him back next week." And the mother thought that's a bit strange, but brought him back next week. And the reason Gandhi said that was because he had an issue with sugar at that point. And that was awakening for him to, right, okay, but I'm going to stop eating sugar now as well. And when the child came back a week later, he'd not eaten sugar for a week and said to the child, "Hey, it's not good for you to eat too much sugar. It's not good for you." He wasn't perfect. He was just doing the best that he could. And, some people could say that, it was sad that he was assassinated, straight after the British had given independence to India. But he still had this incredible impact on this world today that even when anyone pretty much thinks of some form of non-violence intervention, they think of him. Now, I know when we go to school, we often learn about many of the people that I've been doing podcasts on. But we don't then think, well, how can I be like this person? And if I was going to change the education system, I would really, really focus on this. Let's look at people who have impacted the world and let's do some sort of project to become a little bit like that person, or to take an idea or a principle that person applied and apply it to our own lives. This isn't supposed to be a history lesson about Gandhi, because there's probably a lot more to his story that I don't know about. But what I do know is that this is a man who did something incredible. And he must have found some sort of peace inside himself. Just think about who he became and the impact that he had. People often don't realize that if they change, everything else changes. If you go into a room and you're feeling good, it changes the world. If you go into a room and you're worried or depressed or anxious, people will see that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because that happens. But if you know who you want to become and you practice being that person each and every single day, you can find humanity inside yourself, to forgive yourself, to be who you're truly capable of becoming. So I ask you, what's your biggest takeaway from hearing a little bit more about Gandhi? I love this. "I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet." That people that try to pollute your thinking and get you to think in a certain way, or even yourself, that voice in your head, which I liken to a duck. I will not let that duck walk through my mind with its dirty feet. The future depends on what we do in the present. I love that. These are all things that he said. The future depends on what we do in the present. And the fact that you're listening to this, and maybe you've listened from start to end, shows that the genius inside you goes, "I want to win. I want to learn. I want to grow." But you're always going to find resistance to your growth. And that resistance is going to be inside you. But the bigger the reason, the biggest And that's one of the things I talk about. We often see the greatness in people where there's something terrible that's happened, a diagnosis, a prognosis, that they think, I don't want this. I need to move away from this. A violent relationship, a difficult circumstance, and that's fine, but there's nothing better than having something better. Gandhi must have seen the future with an independent India. And it wasn't just the British Empire that he was having to contend with. He was also contending with a whole group of a Muslim nation that wanted their own independent state. And that was also something that happened on the back of his non-violence of what then became Pakistan and India. Now, of course, there's been ongoing problems there, but just think about what he did and the impact that he's had on so many people. He's having an impact on you right now, because you're going to take something away from Gandhi. Maybe you're going to tell someone about Gandhi. A man is but the products of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes. Wow. Let's say that again. A man is but the products of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes. Wow. You must not lose faith in humanity. Humanity is an ocean. If a few drops of the ocean are dirty, the ocean does not become dirty. Just because you have a few negative thoughts, just because your life isn't the way maybe you planned out for it to be, you still have that power. I really appreciate you guys listening to this podcast. What does Gandhi stand for you? For me, he stands for peace. Peace within ourselves. For you to build the genius within you. He stands for forgiveness. Standing up for what you believe in. A truly remarkable human being who will live on, I'm sure, for as long as the earth is here. For as long as people can tell stories, you'll hear the story of Gandhi. What's been your biggest takeaway from this podcast? I really appreciate all of you listening. And one of the things that we ask all of our listeners to do is to like our podcast, is to comment, to share. Let people know. The more we can help each other, the quicker we can go on and make this world a better place. And believe you me, the world needs more inspired people. To be inspired is to breathe life into something that is in front of you. What is in front of you? Whatever you choose. Really enjoyed sharing this story with you. I wish you an incredible rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Gandhi, for rocking the world and standing up for what you believed in. You're an incredible example to all of us all over the world that want to leave our own footprint on this earth. All the best. Much love to you all. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you want to find out what life coaching can do for you with me, Pete Cohen, then simply visit petecohen.com/coaching and book a free strategy call, and we can help you find out exactly what it is that you want and help you put a plan in place to create the future that you want today.